Okay, this week on the Rouge, White, and Blue, week 5 is in the books in the CFL season. And the key words are special teams and underdogs. Also, BC Lions got 146 yards in penalties and still beat the Montreal Alouettes. Coming up on the Rouge, White, and Blue. Welcome to the Rouge, White, and Blue CFL podcast. My name's Oz Davis. I'm the co-host of the show. Joining me as always is my co-host Joe Pritchard, whose team took a similar beating this past week. Do we have to do the show this week, Joe?
I mean, we're here and I hit record, so I think we might as well just keep going, right?
Uh, right. We've talked about this before on the show. This was that week in the CFL where literally all the underdogs won, and fans of certain teams have to wonder to themselves, why are we doing this? But let's press on through. As Joe suggested, we're here anyway. Crazy week in the CFL. Some real barn burners. I hope that if you're turning on new fans to the league, that this was maybe the week that you did it. Started off with the Calgary Stampeders 37, Winnipeg Blue Bombers 16. I've already warmed up by this show by appearing on the Stampeders Roundup. Spoke with Jason last night, and wow, he was ecstatic about this Stampede Bowl. The first
As well, he should be.
Bowl. That quite a win. I was talking about this before. We can talk about the actual nuts and the bolts of the game itself. However, during the game, they talked about how this was the worst Bombers loss since week 3 of 2023. Since then, the
BC.
Bombers against
Not,
BC.
not that I remember that one all that well, right?
And with Vernon Adams at quarterback. But I'm about to bring up more bad memories, Joe. To be honest, during the game, we talked about how this was the worst loss in several years that the Bombers had. And in fact, I went back through the stats and I found out that the Bombers had only been down more than 20 points after that game once. That was in the Grey Cup for about 90 seconds last year. Yet in this game,
I want to say there was a game a couple seasons ago where they were down to Edmonton, like 21-0, and Zach Claris was hurt throwing a pick six, like one of those just plays that you go, why did you throw that ball? And then Drew Brown came in and saved the day. So you gave me a good memory.
I did not turn that one up. In any case, this was a terrible showing. The Bombers spent the entire second half down by 20. Even during the 2-6 run last year, they were never down by this much. Just giving up a lot of points to the Stamps offense. This was, I'm going to say this about a few teams this week, this was a team that we expected all year. And on the other hand, I would also like to say every year in the CFL, there's always that one team that makes your life miserable in CFL Pick'em. And I'm thinking that's the Stamps this year.
I think I'm 0-4 on the Stamps.
Right. Yeah, I went back. I'm 1-3 on the Stamps myself. They seem to be the impossible team to pick. Okay. Well, like I said, I already did this over there at Stampeders Roundup. So taking it from the Stampeders perspective, what did you take away from this game from the Bombers? I mean, is this the sky is falling moment?
No, this is. And as the game went on, I'm just like, wait, he's a Stampeder now? He's a Stampeder? Clearly, I didn't catch on to the level of talent they have because, like, oh, he's there, he's there, he's there, he's there.
Mhm.
Where was I all off season? Not here, clearly. Um, at the same time, there were a couple of plays that swung the entire momentum of the game. The Damon Webb pick six, huge. That game was the Bombers were moving the ball well. The Stampeders had moved the ball well early, scored their opening touchdown. The Bombers had a nice long drive that actually was kind of telling as far as how the rest of the game goes because they were able to run the ball and make short passes and get the ball moving, but had to settle for a field goal because the Stamps played a lot of deep coverages and took away anything long.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just tell for some reason for what Zach was seeing was, okay, that's not there, so let's go find Cummins Clercius on the right sideline all game long, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
it looked like he would look downfield and then Clercius, and he was always open until he wasn't. But that was later.
Well, that was the thing too. That was the thing is you talk about that opening drive. Yes, great. Hey, Brady Oliveira is back. Okay, let's give it to him.
That was good news.
Let's give him 6 times for 37 yards. But then on the next drive, and I mean, I think Calgary even went 3 and out on their second drive. The first play, Oliveira hit that left side and bam, like -2 yards. And the thing is for the rest of the game, that left side was getting punished. This is why Zach is looking up the right sideline the whole game. It's because I don't know. Again, the CFL doesn't really release these rosters until after the game, the starting game roster. So I don't know who is on the left side for Winnipeg, but they were just getting killed this week after that.
Stanley Bryant's side. So that's not usually a situation you have, but
right. So. But that was wild. I noticed that instantly. I mean, and that was on the other side. That was one thing I should say too is that wow, Stamps line has been fantastic this past 2-3 weeks, and
both sides too, because Winnipeg had no pass rush whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Winnipeg. I mean, for me, Winnipeg just looked out of sorts on all phases of the ball. They looked a step short. They looked outsmarted the whole time, beginning with that pick six to make it 14-3. Wow. I said at the beginning of the season that Vernon Adams, I think, is the biggest X factor in this whole league. And you look at the numbers, and these numbers are not amazing. 13 of 18 for 222. On the other hand,
he didn't have to do anything,
right?
But he had to just play smart football, right. And he made one big play early, and played smart football the rest of the way. It's not a VA we're used to because we're used to VA having to bomb it out there. He's got to be the offense. He's got to be the X factor, like we've been talking about, right?
Yep.
But the way the Stamps team is built right now, if that defense keeps playing the way they're playing, he doesn't have to be that X factor, and that could make him even more effective because then he can pick his spots.
Yep.
He did on the first drive. Beautiful throw, touchdown, and then you got Mills there too.
Yep. Barnes with the 43-yarder. Philpott made him look good later on with the 66-yarder. A lot of that was yards after catch. But, you are absolutely correct. What was wild is I felt like the Stamps ultimately beat the Bombers at their own game.
They did. They got ahead, and they were just able to just slowly just crush the life out of the Bombers as they went. They made the Bombers play with short passes, took away the run too. They took away somehow simultaneously able to take away the run and the deep throw. So all that was left with the short passes. And that's a hard way in a 3-down game to make your living. You've got to have the deep ball availability or the run game going. You're not going to live on short passes all day. Although The Bombers weren't the only team that tried that this weekend, but I'll get to that later.
Well, okay. On the other hand, Zach Caleros, 6.0 yards per attempt. I don't remember Zach ever having a game this low in that statistic. And this is not winning CFL football. You're not going to
You want to know what Zach's performance reminded me of?
win. Mm-hmm.
Every Calgary game last year. That's just how that looked. Once they
This is
got
not
Brady
big money.
stopped. Yeah. No. It was a bad game. But
Yeah.
the plays that were out there, everything that was open was short. Calgary was very clearly geared to take away the long ball.
Mhm.
And Zach wasn't in the position, especially when you're down early like that, to be forcing it. Once that interception happened, it felt like the Bombers had to play chase, and the Bombers don't play chase well. That's
Yeah.
the thing about them is they've always, if they don't get out to an early lead, the game gets exponentially harder for them. They get out to that early lead, you're the one that's in deep trouble. But if the Bombers don't get out to that early lead, that's harder for them. They have games where they just can blow the lid off of other teams, but they always start early. They don't start with a 10-point deficit and just go, okay, it's time to rally. It's probably happened. I could probably count on one hand how many times that's happened in the last 5 years where they go down like 10 and make a game out of it.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, I could probably count on two hands how many times they've gone down 10 at all in the first half in the last 5 years.
Yeah, that's the thing. They've never let a game get this out of control. Rarely have they allowed 20 points in the first half in these games. And
No, because even that BC game that you referenced a couple years ago,
right.
I don't think it got off to that awful of a start. It was they were behind and they couldn't get anything moving. And then Vernon had one drive right before the end of the first half that just like changed the entire dynamic of the game. Mm-hmm. Kind of like what Vernon did in the first drive of this game. It's like, okay,
well, yeah. I mean,
here I am. Here's what I can do. I don't have to be doing this all day because my team is clearly better than you today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those games where I've been known to bet a game or two. I did not bet on this game this week, thank God. But it's one of those situations where, okay, so, Winnipeg is favored by 5.5, and the pick six comes in the first quarter and it's 14-3, and your bet is toast. Right? You're not going to win that. It's just shocking to see the Bombers on the other side of that.
Yep. And as far as they go, they have a bye week coming up. Burn the tape. Go take your bye week. Come back. You're still 3-1.
Uh-huh.
You probably were if you'd looked at it at the beginning of the season and went, okay, we're 3-1 after 4.
Right.
You'd been like, okay, fine, we're good.
Yep, that's fair enough. I
Just
mean,
take your time, take your opportunity to have that mental reset. Come on back, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and teams have been good out of the bye this year. Small sample size, but I believe that they're 4-0, 5-0 coming out of the bye now. So coming out of the bye has been good this year. We'll see. Yeah, we'll just. I guess Bomber fans will be hoping that that's just a blip. Let's see. Let me check this out here. Winnipeg is now on the table. They're in third place. They lose that tiebreaker to Calgary because of this. Still a few points above BC for fourth place. So not a disaster for this to happen at this point in the season. Like I say, Winnipeg is hoping this is not signs of things to come. On the other hand,
because by the way, when they come out of the bye, they're hosting Calgary in 2 weeks. So
right. After Calgary gets Saskatchewan this week, so
I mean, this is the opportunity for us to find out. Hey, is this 3-1 start a real thing, or did they just happen to get a little bit of momentum early on?
Yeah, I mean, only now are they above the. Are they on the correct side of the points allowed, points surrender ratio after that game?
Well, I mean, since we're talking about it, at Saskatchewan, at Winnipeg, hosting
Uh-huh.
Montreal, who
Uh-huh.
probably have Davis Alexander back by then. Uh,
Let's
at
hope.
Ottawa, the one team they've lost to so far this year,
Mhm.
and then home against Winnipeg. So
Mhm.
that's a stretch that's going to dictate the narrative of the entire season, I think.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and in the meantime, don't even touch them and pick them. All right. So, also a team that's hoping for a sign of things to come. Hamilton Tiger Cats. Hamilton Tiger Cats 51, Toronto Argonauts 38. What can you say except what a show by Bo Levy Mitchell? Whew, the man is back for his 101st career win. I've got the numbers right here. 19 of 24 for 332 yards, five touchdowns. Five touchdowns. If you had Kenny Lawler, who had 207 yards on three touchdowns, and you have Bo Levy Mitchell as your captain in the CFL weekly format, that's 13 touchdowns for you all. And you probably won your league this week. Monster game. As though that weren't bad enough, the Argos, those poor Argos, also allowed the two return touchdowns later in the, I believe it was in the fourth quarter, giving it up to Isaiah Wooden as this game is slowly turning into a laugher. And earlier on that very nice lateral play from Brown to Janarian Grant for the touchdown. Um, so on the one hand, I should wish congratulations to what is it, Roy Lister of New Westminster, BC, who finally won that Save on Foods $1 million touchdown prize. Now, Joe, do you know when this thing started?
All I know is I remember seeing it. Like I've been watching the
Right,
CFL on a weekly basis for over
right,
a decade now. I
right,
remember that
and
going on as the Safeway touchdown
right,
to win.
right.
At least that long ago. I got a chock full of DVDs from like 2006. I'll have to pop one in and see if that's like on there too. It could very well be that old.
Right, right, right. I know we've been seeing this ever since we began this show 10 seasons ago. And that's how rare this sort of thing is. I mean, that contest has been running forever. Nobody has won until now. And here's
I want
Toronto.
to say like 5 years ago or 6 years ago or something when the height of CFL ref ball was going on. There was the
Right,
second kick return for a score in a game
right.
called back. I don't
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I
and
remember
that
well.
became a national disaster for
Yep.
like 3 weeks straight in the
Hmm.
commentary.
Hmm. I believe, I believe that was 2019 season. I want to say.
Felt like that,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but I want to, yeah, yeah. Oh, I still vividly remember that play, and I'm sure whoever was on the losing end of that Safeway prize also remembers that play very much. Um, Seriously, I came into this game expecting to write off the 2025 Hamilton Tiger Cats, and now I feel
You
like I'm
wanted
ready.
to, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I feel like now I can write off the 2025 Toronto Argonauts.
I'm not quite
Only,
there yet, but
yeah.
yeah, they're not going to match what I my expectations for sure.
But I mean,
But
yeah.
they still have Chad Kelly coming down the pipeline, so that might help. But can Chad Kelly play defense or special teams or any of that?
Or
Because nobody
coordinator?
on that team can play that right now.
No, no, no. No. This is the dictionary definition of discombobulated. I mean, look, if you're giving up 35 points on the defense, I mean, there was a lot of 30-point teams this week, but I don't think anyone gave up 35 points on offense. Like I said at the top of the show, special teams was, a very big deal for quite a few teams this week. And, again, they're giving up the double kickoff return touchdown game in Toronto, but they're also giving up 30 for 35 points in the passing game. That's not going to cut it in the CFL. The Argos are now 1-4. Only only not the worst team in the league by dint of the win against Ottawa, the one win they've had this season. Um, I got to think, and you talk about Chad Kelly, you talk about coming back in
Yeah.
week 9,
And let's be
ostensibly.
fair, Nick Arbuckle's been pretty decent the last few weeks,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's not really on the offense here.
Nope. Oh no! It's the defense. It's the defense. The defense is out of sorts. Toronto has now surrendered 163 points. That's worst in the league. That's worst in the league by a fairly long margin. A couple touchdowns over second worst Ottawa. So, but I mean, we expected more out of Toronto. I know there's a lot of reshuffling. I know they've got 8 new starters on the defense, but by now, you figure they would not be giving up 5 touchdowns. I mean, Bo Levy aside, wow, wow, wow. This is not what you wanted to see out of the Argos. I can't help thinking this is a gap year. You Chad Kelly may come back, and this team might be 1-7. When he comes back, and maybe he can whip off 5 in a row. Maybe Toronto can get to 9-9, but I don't see it happening. I this which is fine for me. I mean, now I just have to worry about Hamilton, but kudos to them. I mean, really, seriously, this is the team I thought I was going to see when in the obnoxiously early predictions round I had winning the East. This is starting to look like the team from the East. I'm still not exactly wowed by the defense on Hamilton. I think there's still a lot of work to do there. But I mean, this offense can spin the scoreboard.
Yep. So sometimes you only need the defense to be okay when you can do that.
Oh yeah, 5 passing touchdowns. You gotta love that. Okay, I guess it's time for me to face up. Third game of the week. BC Lions 21, Montreal Alouettes 20. Like I said, I did the Calgary Stampeders show last night. And so what happened in this game? Jason asked me, and I'm still trying to figure it out.
Your clock operator was obviously born in BC.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I mean, look. The truth is, okay. Look. All right, the Lions, I think I may have mentioned, gave up 146 points on penalties. I was ready with about 5 minutes left in the game. I was ready to come on this podcast, come on the Stamps podcast, and just say, I don't think I've ever seen a CFL game that decided by penalties. Really. I mean, they took a touchdown off the board for BC. They had one where they had it inside the red zone on the 12-yard line on second down penalty back to the 22. Took those points off the board for BC. But look, this is football, right? It all came down to essentially one play. When our guy Dequoy went down, tripped over the sideline, as they say, just lost his footing, and Barry Hill was wide open for the touchdown. That's why we lost. Okay, now, last play of the game, Montreal on defense. Okay, the Katoy 13-yarder. All right, clever play. Alouettes defense completely out of position, gets them to the 49. But what is this 0.2 seconds? What are we in the NBA now? I don't recall seeing that before, honestly, in the CFL. Now, not complaining. BC did enough to win, but I'm still shell shocked by this thing. Now the Owls are tied with the Ticats in the loss column. Hamilton wins next week. Hosting what? They're hosting Ottawa. They win next week. They're in first place in the East. My God. My God. What's going on, Joe? What's going on here?
Well,
my Owls are looking so good. No, I don't know. Let me ask you this one. Let me ask you this one. Am I being unfair? Okay, the Owls are down. 18-17. Okay, with about 2 minutes left. All right. All we need is a score, but realistically, it's the thing where you're giving the ball back, to BC. We know they can score. All right. Well, we suspect they can probably score. Right. Okay. And as an Alouettes fan, you just have zero confidence in McLeod Bethel Thompson. You know,
Right there. Yep.
I
Hmm.
mean, this is the guy. Last game, we had one offensive touchdown the whole game. That was with 4.5 minutes left in the game. In this game, at least we had Sean Thomas Erlington was alive out of the running game, had something going this week. But and that's the difference. If Davis Alexander had come back out there, I think I'm saying something different right now during this podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
Either that or it would have been, he may have not had a great performance, but at the same time, like McLeod Bethel Thompson is like, he has a ceiling and it's not high enough to be a consistent winner. It's just
yeah,
not.
I mean, he did okay, 15-23. 192 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks.
But that's it. He did okay.
Right,
And
right,
he
right,
always
right,
did okay.
right.
Anywhere he was, Toronto, he did okay. They were 10-8. They won
Mm-hmm,
the Grey Cup because Chad Kelly played the last quarter of that game, right?
mm-hmm,
He
mm-hmm,
did,
mm-hmm,
and then in Edmonton, he did okay, and they would lose by 3, like 5 weeks in a row. It's just that's what he's capable of. He's not at this point. I mean, he's supposed to be the guy that wins you 2 out of 4, right? So
mm-hmm,
far, he's 0 for 2, so he better have 2. If David Alexander's out much longer, he better start winning those, right?
mm-hmm.
And like, I don't think your defense played that poorly. Nathan Rourke
No,
played very well. His
no.
own team held him back, and they're going to hold him back all season.
Mm-hmm.
But
Defense was
like,
fine.
yeah,
Defense was fine. We
you
okay.
needed one more drive,
Oh god.
one more drive out of that whole game, with BC shooting themselves in the foot the entire game, and you couldn't deliver.
No. Yeah, we needed one more play on that last drive. Again, Dequoy on the fluke defensive coverage there at the end of the game. My God. But that's what's I looking at it objectively, this is what makes football great, right? It's just the fact that the whole thing can turn on a dime.
Yeah,
I
if I
just wish
remember
it had.
correctly, too, Thompson threw a pretty bad pick at one point too that cost you some points.
Well, yeah, but in the end, that one was forgotten because this is BC, who now, by the way, is league worst -9 turnover differential. And it's wild because I didn't know this is the way you did it in the stats. But McLeod Bethel Thompson tried to be Trey Ford for a play, trying to throw it on the run, gets it picked off, but then Montreal recovered the fumble.
Ah,
So
yeah,
we just got it right back there. And what's wild is the stat sheet says Montreal has 0 turnovers for this game. So,
because they started
uh,
the play with the ball and ended the play with the ball.
right.
Except it should have been 1-1 for both, to be
Right,
fair.
exactly. Technically, they did not turn it over, but for a couple of seconds, they did turn it over. But that's neither here nor there. No, see, he didn't really. He didn't look. McLeod Bethel Thompson is not the reason why we lost this game, but he might have been the reason why we didn't win. When all we needed was one more play in that fourth quarter and couldn't get it. So
And also,
kind of just
we're like 6 years past, like we're back in the days where Jason Moss forgets that there's a running back anymore, and he didn't have this problem the past few years. I
no,
don't understand what the difference is this year.
no. Well, our starter is Sean Thomas Erlington. Decent enough quarterback, but this is not the power game that we had the past few years. And this game, Arlington was good. Arlington was getting the ball. I mean, this was not a run dominant offense, but he was getting the ball. There was something happening there, and you got several first downs for us as well. So, I mean, again, this was, BC is giving up what, 5 something yards per carry in the running game,
Mhm.
and they still won. Again, very concerning. Really, I hope that the CFL does not come down to one game for the Alouettes because, man, that's going to be a tough one. If this game somehow makes the difference between getting, like, say, that home championship game for the East Finals, boy, that's gonna be sad. That's gonna be sad because this was a win. This was on the table as a win. Instead, now Montreal clinging to that first place lead in the East again. If Hamilton wins next week, that's second place for the Owls. Somehow BC is 2-3, but that's one of the less impressive 2-3s I think I've seen in this
And I
league.
guess the most important part of this whole game is that Cole Speaker only had 3 targets. You
Mhm.
got to give a UW lacrosse guy more targets. He produces when you give him targets.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you can't complain. I mean, again, there's so little to pick on with this Alouettes team this year, and you just come back to
Yeah, he's one of my fantasy stalwarts because he's usually pretty cheap, so that's why I
yeah,
like him. Plus, I
yeah.
mean, some semi-local, so we'll go with that too.
Mm. um. Okay. Well, enough of this. Enough of this. Montreal gets a bye week next week, so we'll be happy for the time off. All right. So barn burner. Edmonton Elks 39, Ottawa Redblacks 33. First win of the season for Edmonton. Now, I'm not sure how many people thought this was going to be a barn burner, but Joe, I recall that you did scoff at me last week when I said probably the pick of the week is your over. Um, for me, this was proof that CFL Pick'em is folly. This was the only game I bet this week, so I was very happy with that. Just had a feeling that the Elks were going to pull this one out. Um, did not know they would do it in this fashion. Wow. Last week I ended up with describing a game in 2 words. I got another 2 words for you. Justin Rankin with the career season, basically, in this one game. Okay, here are the numbers: 105 yards receiving, 69 yards running, 163 yards on returns, right? So what is that? 260, 270, 340, 338 total yards. The hat trick, 3 touchdowns, one of each. What a monster game by Justin Rankin. Now, by the same token, it's nice to have those running and special teams touchdowns. But just for the record, Trey Ford, 15 of 17 for 212, showing absolute control in that pocket as they turn him into a more conventional player. Had to create a couple of times, but did so. Even brought in Cody Fajardo for a series or two, 4 of 4 for 29 yards. On the total, that's
4 of
9.
4 in 2 and outs.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mm-hmm.
first time you bring him in was when Trey Ford's 9 of 9. Like, really?
Right.
They did
Right.
actually go over this extensively on the broadcast
Yeah.
and even mentioned it at halftime,
Mm-hmm.
where Paul LaPolice was telling a story about the Riders having done that back when he was the OC, and you could just tell by the way he was presenting it that it's like I didn't like the idea either, and like this is dumb. It's just my goodness, like
Pretty wild. Pretty
why?
wild. But
No, the way you
yeah, I'm not
do
sure.
that, the way you do that second quarterback is if you need to give your guy a breather if he's having a rough start, or you have a really good matchup you liked after you had a short yardage play. You look at both lineups and go, okay, we don't want to let the defense substitute. Let's just keep rolling with this. That's when you pull that out of your hat.
Mhm,
And it's a
mhm,
team like Winnipeg with Strevler that could do that. And Edmonton's Fajardo still has some physical skills. He could still he's the one running short yardage. He could still be mobile if need be. So if they got something for that, great, then that's a good idea. But like
mhm.
just to go, okay, it's near the end of the first quarter. We're gonna give Fajardo a drive. Like, why?
Yeah, yeah.
Especially since he's the veteran and he has the reps in he's got all those reps from past years. It's like he doesn't need an extra couple.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. What's a little? I mean, the TSN crew did comment that Ford had gotten some sort of contusion on his non-throwing hand, but didn't seem to affect him that much. I'm not sure what was going on there. I don't know. Maybe they were taking the W for granted, which kind of strange from a winless team. But it was pretty clear pretty early on that Edmonton had this game under control. What they got out to the 15-0 lead or 15-3 lead
It was
after
22
the
to 3 at
first,
one point.
22
Yeah.
to 3 in the second. Yep, yep, yep. So maybe they were just gambling that they had this game in hand. Again, winless team. I'm not sure you take that chance. Um, for Ottawa, Drew Brown came back. Let's see the numbers here.
And I
31.
wouldn't have had the reaction I did to you last week about that being game hitting the over if I knew Drew Brown was playing.
Well, I was suspecting that he was, but after the Elks played fairly well in the second half against Winnipeg, I felt that this was a bit of a turn for them. Edmonton can't be this bad. They've been in some of these ball games. They haven't been blown out. I felt similarly about Hamilton this week too. The last half, against Montreal, of course, was quite good. And so I feel like these are a couple of teams that are on the up. Now, I don't know how far up Edmonton can go. The West is looking pretty scary at this point in general, right now, anyway. All the quality teams again seem to be in the West. But I don't know. Edmonton, I feel things are positive there for the first time this season.
Yeah, they're definitely. You could see progress being made each and every week, which
Uh huh. Right.
football isn't a linear game. It's not easy to do that.
Hmm.
But they really have a chance next week hosting BC, a team that beat them pretty badly in Vancouver. It's a place Edmonton doesn't play well anyway. So you can
Mm.
kind of chalk that up to that a little bit. And week one's always a bit of a weird one.
Hmm.
But they got a chance to say, hey, we're here, we're in the race. If they lose, they're way out of it early, and then they have a bye,
Hmm.
and then the schedule doesn't get much easier from there. So, like, this is your opportunity to put yourself in the conversation.
Hmm. Okay, well, let's just get into that then. Let's talk about because there's only 3 games next week, but there's a lot of teams with something to play for. There's a lot of teams that need a statement here or would like to make a statement. All right, so we're starting off. We've got 3 divisional games, and again, most of these are going to be quite telling. We start off with Calgary at Saskatchewan. Now, there's ever a time for Calgary to prove it, here it is. Last week, I felt was the first time that they had a viable passing game without Reggie Begelton. If Vernon can keep cool, if this line can keep him clean, we might have, we might have an upset here. Although I should say this, Saskatchewan has looked like the class of the league this year, and they're coming off of the bye, which has been good for CFL teams. So I'm expecting a nail biter here. It would be nice to get kind of a close game. Not too many games recently have been close. No lead is safe it has been dead this year, unless you want to count the 8-point lead in Montreal this past week. Um, so I regardless. I'm going to be brave. I'll take the upset here. I'll say Calgary upsets. I say Saskatchewan takes their first loss of the season, which you would like to see.
I mean, I always love to see that, but I don't think I see it this week. I think they win on at the gun with a field goal.
Oh,
I think the Riders win it. I think Calgary makes a statement though, and I do think that Calgary is not going to be sneaking up on anybody anymore. If this game was in Calgary, I'd be more inclined to pick them. I'm also horrible at picking Calgary this week, so maybe there's a little bit of reverse drinks going on here. I'm not gonna say whether or not that's actually the case here or whether I actually believe this, but either way, Saskatchewan by 3 at the gun.
I kind of like that pick because the spread on this game is 4.5. And I do occasionally like to do that in football to take the favorite, but take the favorite to win, and then take the underdog plus the points. So maybe I'll do that for this game because, yeah, 4.5 seems like a lot with the way Calgary is playing right now. Also at 4.5, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, 4.5 point favorites, hosting Ottawa. Gee, I'm sorry, Ottawa, but Drew Brown aside, Hamilton is just the last, 6, 7 quarters of football have been really nice. Ottawa defense, I'm sorry, is just too porous for what looks like a high watt offense here. How many? Okay, so last game they had 35 points on the offense. In week 4, they also put up 35 points. And I believe that was all on the offense. So, I mean, as much as the scoreboard was spinning this past week, Hamilton has really got a lot of, they got a lot of wattage on this offense. So I think Hamilton at home going away against Ottawa, and woof, now in first place in the East after this week.
And Ottawa doesn't play smart either. They make dumb plays. They make bad decisions. They take a lot of penalties. They were the team I was referencing when I said, hey, the Bombers weren't the only team relying heavily on the short pass. That was Ottawa's entire game plan, too. They had Khalil Pimpleton take one and go a long way with it. He did that on a return as well.
Yep.
At the same time, it took Drew Brown a while to get comfortable. Even later in the game, they were having mistakes on the snap count, taking time count violations. Rusty from being out from the looks of it and not cohesive. All the talent in the world with Drew Brown, and he's got some talented receivers, but something isn't right there right now.
Yeah, Pimpleton was the answer to Rankin in this game for Ottawa. But, yeah, this is a team, Ottawa, that's been living on its wits the past couple of seasons, and they are not playing Red Blacks ball right now. Now, maybe a lot of that is on Drew Brown being out. Drew Brown is back, but I don't think this is the week that they put it together. I think Hamilton might be the hottest team in the league right now, so at least in the short term. So
yeah, I've got Hamilton too.
Yeah, I think they win handily this week. Okay, finally we have BC at Edmonton. All right, the book has BC as a 3.5 point favorite. If BC loses, that would drop them to last place in the West, which would be pretty wild. However, playing as they have this year, I would not at all be surprised to see that happen. So, I've already picked my upset this week. However, I'm gonna go with Edmonton. I think the Elks pull it off. I think 2 in a row for the Elks. Have not been impressed with BC, especially on that defensive side. And again, here's a team that put up They put up 32 points on the offense last week. So I think that Edmonton could score on BC. I think, again, this might be an over. This might be an over game for Edmonton again.
Yeah, and can BC stop the run? Because Edmonton's got a two-headed monster back there.
Oh,
they
yes, they
to
do.
It.
Oh, yes, they do.
Like Nathan Rourke's going to drag this team as far as he can take them, but he's going to have to drag a lot of them along because
Mm-hmm.
they don't have the talent that they had a couple of years ago. I don't know what happened out there. It just like Rourke did everything. Like BC should have put up a lot more points last week. Let's be fair, based off of all the penalties they took and some mistakes his teammates made. Just like Rourke is just like trying to shove a boulder up a mountain with this
Yep.
group.
Yep.
Um, and Edmonton's playing well, and they have some confidence building,
Mm-hmm.
and they're a lot more disciplined this year.
Mm-hmm.
There's still some problems. They still like 2 weeks ago that when the Winnipeg game was winnable, they made some mistakes that cost them that game. Last week, they didn't make those mistakes. They let Ottawa make those mistakes and they took the game. So they're also playing at home. Not that that's been much of an advantage for the past 5 years for them, but first time they got to start a new tradition sometime, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think they did. I think they take this one,
Mm-hmm.
unless Nathan Rourke has just a phenomenal game. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's always on the table, and I feel like we're simultaneously. This is the weird thing. I feel like we're simultaneously overrating Nathan Rourke and underrating him at the same time. I don't know how that's possible, but that's kind of the feel I have because like you always expect 2022 Nathan Rourke to come walking out of the locker room, and that was a phenomenal team effort on that
Yes.
offense.
Yes. Yes.
He might be a better player now, but he doesn't
Yes.
have the same group around him.
No. No. That's the thing. I mean, Burial has been the number 2 guy this year, and he's a nice receiver and all. He had essentially the game-winning touchdown against Montreal, but this is not the all-star core that Nathan has had at quarterback with BC. So that's a lot of it. Running game, yeah, non-existent running game in general. James Butler is the number 1 guy, but I mean he's going for less than 3 yards per carry against the Owls. The Owls are, that's a nice defense against the run, so you can't hold it against him. But it's not like he's had a breakout game this year either. I mean, Sean Thomas Erlington for the Owls in this past game did more than I think any BC runner has done all season, and he only had 70, 80 yards. So this was BC does not have the depth at receiver. They do not have the depth at running back. I feel like they're in a similar situation, to um, who was the other team I was looking at. I feel like they're in a similar situation to Ottawa, say, or even uh, Calgary at the beginning of this season. Just low depth in those skill, quote unquote, positions on the offense. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, all right. We like Edmonton this week. I love it. Let's put BC at the bottom of that table. In any case, okay. Well, I got to get out of here, folks. So we're going to wrap this episode this week. This has been the Rouge, White, and Blue CFL podcast. For my co-host, Joe Pritchard, I'm Oz Davis. We are out of here for this week. Enjoy the short week, and we'll be back for week 7.